Hi, I'm Paul Pasulka, Ivy Masters Learning Center at ivymasters.com. And today we're going to look at Test 3, Section 1, number 40, which reads, the authors of both passages would most likely agree with which of the following statements about women in the 18th century. So, oftentimes on paired passages, usually they show difference, and then there's a question that that asks about similarity. So let's investigate answer choice A. Their natural preferences were the same as those of men. And for that, we could look in passage 1, and let's go to, looks like in line 21, starting around there, it's talking about that type of thing. It seems to us incontestable that our common happiness, above all that of women, requires that they never aspire to exercise of political rights and functions. Here we must ask the interests and their wishes of nature. Is it not apparent that their delicate constitution, their peaceful inclinations, and the many duties of motherhood set them apart from the strenuous habits and onerous duties and summon them to gentle occupations and the cares of the home? So saying that the nature of men and women are different there, and that makes women better equipped for one role and men better equipped for a different one. So A is gone. Answer choice B, they need a good education to be successful in society. Well, in the first passage, you could see in the blurb, it says Talleyrand, his title is a report on public instruction. So it sounds like this passage is going to be about education. And then when we get to the meat of it, it seems like it is talking more about politics, women's rights, ability to vote, and here, if the exclusion from public employments decreed against women leads to greater sum of the mutual happiness of the two sexes, then it becomes a law that all societies have been compelled to acknowledge and sanction. So it's saying that women are excluded from work, public employments. And then in 21 to 24, it seems to us incontestable that our common happiness above all that of women requires that they never aspire to exercise of political rights and functions. So no job and no political rights for women is what he's saying there. He does not really address education per se. And even if he did, it's implied that he probably would not want women to be educated. He certainly does not sound like he'd agree with answer choice B. Answer choice C. They were just as happy in life as men were. So we'll look at the theme of happiness in the first passage in line 2. We see human race is excluded by the other half from any participation in government in 9 to 11. The purpose of all these institutions must be the happiness of the greatest number. And so he's not talking about women per se, but just the greatest number of people. And then we already saw in 13 to 15, exclusion from public employments decreed against women leads to a greater sum of mutual happiness for the two sexes. He's not talking about the happiness of women, just everyone happier. Then this becomes a law that all societies have been compelled to acknowledge and sanction. And then 21 to 24, which we saw, it seems incontestable that our common happiness above all that of women. So it sounds like what he's saying is everyone's happier if women are not allowed to work. So women, you got to take one for the team, you got to suck it up, you're not able to work. Requires that they never aspire to the exercise of political rights and functions. And he continues there. So he seems like his interest is the happiness of everyone, not the happiness of women per se. And then in the second passage, we see lines 72 to 80 here. This paragraph seems to be saying much of the same. Consider, I address you as a legislator, whether when men contend for their freedom and be allowed to judge for themselves respecting their own happiness, it not be inconsistent and unjust to subjugate women, even though they you firmly believe you are acting in the manner best calculated to promote their happiness. Who made man the exclusive judge if women partake with him the gift of reason? So it seems like men judge what's happiness for men, and men judge what's happiness for women. And she's saying that's not cool. And then lastly, in this last paragraph here, from line 85, do you not act a similar part when you force all women by denying them civil and political rights to remain immured in their families groping in the dark? So immured, if you know that word, it means confined against the will. So it does not sound like women are very happy if they're confined against their own will. So I think it is safe to say that answer choice C is wrong. So it must be answer choice D. They generally enjoyed fewer rights than men did. So let's see it in the first passage. And then the first passage, as we said before, he says, half of the human race is excluded by the other half from any participation in government. Sounds like, well, who is he talking about? It winds up that he's talking about women. That they, women, are native by birth but foreign by law in the very land where they were born, and that their property owners yet have no direct influence or representation. So he's describing women in those first lines, and that becomes more obvious as the passage goes on. And then this part over here, which we already read a couple of times, they're excluded from public employments. And let's see what else. 21 to 24, which we already read a couple times. Women should never aspire to the exercise of political rights and functions. What else? 41. In the second passage, the author is contending for the rights of women. So she would not have to contend for the rights of women if women already had those rights. Unless freedom strengthen her reason till she comprehend her duty. So it sounds like she's arguing that women should be educated so that she understands what she should. So it sounds like women are not being educated either. And she actually quotes Talleyrand from the first passage, that to see one half of the human race excluded by the other half at any participation in government. And you see women have fewer rights there as well. And let's see what else. 76, which we looked at. It's talking about women being subjugated. And then down here, she's basically calling him a tyrant. So it doesn't sound like she's got her rights there. And then, yeah, I think that's actually plenty to show that, well, over here, denying them civil and political rights. Women are denied political and civil rights. So taken together, you could see that there's overwhelming evidence that both authors are saying that women enjoy fewer rights. The author of the first passage is saying, yeah, but that's because everyone's happier if women don't have rights. Kind of crazy what was said a couple hundred years ago and accepted by many people. Thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, click like. You could share it with someone who has trouble with. A lot of these passages are older passages written about women's rights. A lot of times students have trouble with these types of passages. If there's any question you'd like to see answered from any official PSAT or SAT or ACT, you can post that in the comments. I'd be happy to shoot a video on it. And click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Have a great day.